"We never thought it would happen again," they shouted, almost in disbelief. "Yet here we are, teetering on the brink." You may be wondering what seismic event could spark such shock and alarm. No, it is not a meteor crashing into Earth or some intergalactic threat. It is, unbelievably, measles. Yes, that ancient and once nearly forgotten scourge, surging to its highest infection rate in roughly 3 decades. How on earth did we reach this point again? And how does it tie into a day swirling with global tension, major protests, and political upheaval? Today, we will take you on a riveting journey through a tangled web of competing headlines, from a top doctor's urgent warnings about infectious disease to a wave of international unrest that threatens to overshadow what could become one of the most serious public health challenges of our generation. We will pull back the curtain, expose the lesser-known details, and, of course, seek insight from the expert who is brave enough to dissect the facts and bust the myths. Strap in tight, because what you are about to discover may well redefine our sense of global priorities and personal responsibility. At the heart of today's story is a single but potent focal point. Measles cases in the United States have reached a 30-year high. On the surface, this might seem like a bizarre repeat of ancient history, given that not so long ago, medical professionals were patting themselves on the back for nearly eliminating this childhood menace. Now, that complacency is coming back to haunt us. The question is, how did these cases sneak up on us so swiftly? Is it merely vaccine hesitancy? Or is it the combined effect of social factors, travel patterns, and gaps in public health awareness coming together to form the perfect storm? We are about to find out, as the story leading up to this outbreak is a cliffhanger in its own right. Potential global conflicts, shifting political landscapes, and dramatic headlines about leaders and protests might lure our attention away from the spreading infection. Yet these parallel events also color the context in which the health crisis unfolds, shaping everything from funding for research to the willingness of folks like you and your neighbors to take crucial preventive steps. In this episode, we will uncover the strands tying these events together and shine a bright spotlight on precisely how and why a re-emergent disease could threaten us all. Imagine Dr. Jessica Shepard, Chief Medical Officer for HERS, stepping into the glare of the studio lights on a sweltering day in mid-June of 2025. She has the look of someone who carries on her shoulders not just her own professional reputation, but the weight of public well-being. Over the course of countless interviews, she has learned to speak not only as a medical expert, but also as a translator of terrifying data points into language the average person can grasp. And today, her words carry a particular urgency. With measured poise, she places astonishing facts on the table. Measles cases have soared in ways we have not witnessed since the 90s. Some communities are watching entire households exhibit the signature rash in a matter of hours, prompting renewed calls for tighter vaccination guidelines. Dr. Shepard warns of the myths fueling this uptick: overconfident self-diagnoses, illusions about herd immunity existing for all diseases regardless of immunization status, and the assumption that measles is just that mild childhood illness that rarely kills. These misconceptions she corrects firmly. Yet perhaps her greatest challenge is persuading those who already believe themselves immune from blame. The issue, she notes, touches every neighborhood, every class, and every racial group, smashing illusions that measles is confined to some fringe or distant region. But Dr. Shepard's voice is only part of the drama. If we zoom out for a moment, we find ourselves in a day overshadowed by a cacophony of other crises. The date is June 15th, 2025, an otherwise unremarkable day, except that the nation, and indeed the entire world, quiver under the weight of fresh conflicts and boiling tensions. In Minnesota, a manhunt rages on for an alleged shooter who, in a shocking turn of events, targeted state officials. Over in the Middle East, the Israel Defense Forces declare they have hit over 250 targets in Iran since earlier this week, stoking the fires of geopolitical strain. Meanwhile, in Canada, leaders from major world powers brace for a G7 summit that seems poised to be overshadowed by heated debates about not merely economics and climate change, but fast-escalating unrest in various regional hotspots. Add to that the continuing swirl of political drama on the home front. President Donald Trump, about to celebrate his 79th birthday, has just orchestrated a large-scale military parade, prompting enormous nationwide protests under the banner, "No King's Day." The combination of these headlines leaves many Americans spinning. How can we possibly focus on yet another health scare when bombs threaten to explode half a world away and our own national climate is rife with rancor? Yet for all the shock that these events bring, the raw numbers surrounding measles speak for themselves, like a quiet storm gathering power, while attention is fixed elsewhere. Some health officials share that certain states are on track to match or exceed infection levels never before seen in their lifetimes. Are we truly prepared for potential quarantines in major metropolitan areas? Public gatherings shut down? Fears about traveling or sending children to school? And if these dire warnings were not enough, swirling rumors suggest that in communities where immunization rates have plummeted, the virus's ability to spread leaps from person to person with incredible efficiency. This real-life drama is enthralling and disturbing because it slices straight into our illusions of 21st century security, reminding us that no matter how advanced our medical achievements may be, nature can still strike back if we let our vigilance lapse. Now, before we plunge deeper into the swirling intensity of the measles crisis, let us take a breath and examine the broader atmosphere. One might ask, why are these alarming infection rates not front-page headlines in every major newspaper? The answer is simpler than you might think. While health experts are sounding bells, the world is in a frenzy. Every hour, new developments seem to overshadow the previous storyline. An intense war of words and missiles has erupted between Iran and Israel, capturing the attention of anxious onlookers worldwide who fear a direct confrontation with grave consequences. Reporters in the Middle East scramble for updates amid an unrelenting trickle of statements from both governments. Meanwhile, in the United States, local law enforcement in Minnesota tries to keep up with a suspect who has fled after a shooting spree that many label politically motivated. People wonder if they can trust their roads and highways when stray bullets might strike at any time. And overshadowing it all is the G7 meeting up north in Canada, where President Trump is expected to spar with other world leaders over trade, strategic alliances, and responses to growing conflicts. It is no wonder, then, that a disease outbreak, no matter how historically significant, struggles for page space and viewer attention. But let us not forget the unstoppable factor in all this, the power of personal stories. When images of children locked in quarantined homes or laid up in hospital beds with high fevers and blotchy rashes start circulating, hearts instinctively stir. It is at this intersection of data points and human faces that Dr. Shepard's warnings take on a new kind of urgency. She implores viewers to remember that measles is not just a rash, not just an inevitable childhood milestone. This virus can inflict real harm, even turning deadly if complications arise. And in these uncertain times, she hints, we can scarcely afford to let our guard down, not when basic steps such as verifying vaccination records might stem this crisis. Are you finding these insights useful so far? If you are, consider showing a bit of support by sharing this information with friends who might still be on the fence about general health measures. Every small gesture helps, so do not hesitate to let us know you are on board with a quick like or thumbs up. We appreciate every voice. With the stage set, let us head now into more detailed territory. Did you know that some historians believe measles may have ravaged populations centuries ago, leaving entire villages hollowed out? Throughout the modern era, nations progressively recognized the seriousness of the virus, channeling resources into rigorous immunization campaigns that nearly eradicated the illness in certain regions. That near-total elimination lulled many of us into complacency, believing the virus no longer posed a threat. Then came the rise of misinformation campaigns, combined with pockets of under-vaccinated populations, and the result is the situation we are living through right now, a sharp reminder that victory over disease is never guaranteed if we lower our guards. In the last half-century, doctors have often repeated a sobering statistic. The measles virus is incredibly contagious, capable of ripping through unprotected communities in days. The new spike in infections exemplifies that dynamic, exposing how interlinked our lives truly are. Today, Dr. Shepard says, a single case of measles in one region can lead to dozens of new ones half a world away if travelers are unvaccinated and in close proximity. It is not an ancient threat resigned to dusty textbooks. It is here, and it is demanding our attention. Meanwhile, swirling around us are myriad signs that the global context may well influence how we respond to the outbreak. Iran and Israel exchange missile strikes, each side claiming significant retaliatory hits. The Israel Defense Forces spokesperson says they have targeted suspected nuclear facilities, while Iranian generals vow never to yield to threats or negotiations. World leaders, huddled in Canada for the G7 summit, weigh whether this new conflict calls for massive realignments of diplomatic alliances. In the middle of these volatile circumstances, President Trump is seen planning yet another symbolic display of American might, fueling the fervor of No King's Day protesters who fill city centers across the country with placards and chants. "We do not want a monarchy," these protesters cry, "nor do we want to be dragged into new conflicts or overshadow real crises at home." And indeed, the biggest real crisis, an infectious outbreak that bears the potential to break local healthcare systems if it continues to spread, might be lost in the roar of jets flying overhead. Yet if there is one thing that health experts have learned over the years, it is that viruses do not wait for political drama to subside. At the same time, we are confronted by the emotional fallout in Minnesota, where a state lawmaker and their spouse have been gunned down in what some call an assassination fueled by political hatred. The entire region reels, with local officials warning that the suspect's whereabouts remain unknown. This is more than a local tragedy. It is a snapshot of how polarized times can throw entire communities into a state of vulnerability, making it even harder for public health officials to coordinate responses to things like a possible measles outbreak. If you are feeling overwhelmed by this cascade of intense headlines, ranging from Middle East tensions to local violence and unstoppable health scares, rest assured that you are not alone. It is precisely this swirl of confusion that can cause people to tune out essential news about public health guidance. But just as we rally in times of war or crisis, so too can we rally to ensure our children, neighbors, and elders remain protected. That sense of unity, albeit elusive, is more crucial now than ever. Let us pause for a moment on the subject of unity. There is a reason Dr. Shepard continues her call for comprehensive community engagement. She knows that measles, this virus that once filled wards with feverish children, thrives on social fragmentation. When parents debate over vaccines or entire municipalities cut corners on community health funding, the virus quietly capitalizes on those weak links. Medical staff stand by, prepared to administer immunizations, but face pushback from those who question the necessity or safety of standard protocols. Meanwhile, rumors swirl on social media about bizarre cures or conspiracies. None of this is new, but it is amplified by the chaos in larger national and international politics, leading to a perfect storm for the disease to spread further. So, let us break that cycle. If we do not, the outbreak will only intensify. And as an informed viewer or listener, you carry more influence than you might think. If a particular revelation in this discussion strikes home, if a certain detail resonates, why not share it with those around you? Perhaps mention it in a community forum, or simply mention the facts in your next conversation. You might be surprised by how quickly knowledge can combat misinformation. And if you are on board with our mission to bring timely insights to light, feel free to subscribe or follow along, because staying informed is a powerful move in these unpredictable times. We also cannot ignore that June 15th, 2025, marks a significant confluence of events. It happens to be close to Flag Day, a symbolic date in the United States. The Army celebrates its 250th anniversary, an occasion that might typically be cause for patriotic pride and reflection. But this year, overshadowed by the President's grand parade and the wave of No King's Day demonstrations, the commemoration feels different. Some participants wave the flag with intense fervor, while others hold signs that reference the Constitution, hoping to warn their leaders that they expect a democracy, not an imperial rule. Throughout major cities, crowds gather, chanting, "We will not be silenced," and occasionally clashing with riot police intent on maintaining order. Does any of that bear on a measles outbreak? Directly, not so much. But indirectly, absolutely. Large gatherings provide an ideal environment for the virus to hop from one person to another, especially among the unvaccinated. It is an ironic twist that the same events planned to showcase unity and national pride could become hotbeds for disease transmission without careful health checks in place. Then there is the looming specter of the G7 summit in Canada. Leaders from several of the world's most powerful nations gather to debate pressing issues: climate change, trade balances, foreign policy matters involving Israel and Iran, and perhaps a host of lesser-known agendas. Will the measles outbreak even make it onto their radar? Or Will the health crisis be brushed aside as an afterthought in the face of heated diplomatic battles? Only time will tell. Some insiders hint that Canada itself may be growing concerned about cross-border travel and the possibility of measles spreading from region to region. Meanwhile, pictures and short video clips of Pope Leo's first-ever address to the United States in a video message from Chicago flash across social media feeds. On another day, that address might have been the lead story. But in this stew of urgent bulletins, questions about potential escalations in the Middle East or the possibility of more violence in Minnesota overshadow almost everything else. This is precisely how a disease, stealthy in nature, can continue to expand. The public's attention is so thoroughly fragmented that alarm bells about infection rates get drowned out. Now, returning to Dr. Shepard's interview, after recounting the essential facts, she explains the next steps. That includes clarifications about the myths swirling online. Contrary to popular misconceptions, measles can be extremely dangerous, particularly for vulnerable individuals with weaker immune systems, she stresses. Healthcare providers recommend verifying immunization status for anyone unsure of their medical history, particularly young children who missed routine shots due to recent disruptions in healthcare or vaccine skepticism. She urges that if you dwell within an area reporting new cases, it is critical to consult local health departments for the latest guidelines on testing and preventive measures. Perhaps the most telling segment of the conversation is her warning that we cannot afford to wait until a massive outbreak hits every major city. At that point, controlling it will be profoundly more difficult. Throughout all these revelations, we keep returning to one central truth. Real people are being impacted. Real families are seeking help from hospitals. Real doctors, nurses, administrators, and public health staff are working around the clock to keep things from spiraling. In some senses, the tension of overshadowing crises might ironically protect certain communities from hysteria. Since the focus is often elsewhere, we do not see the same frenzied rush on medical supplies that once occurred during other outbreaks. However, that blissful ignorance can backfire if neighbors and towns fail to grasp the seriousness of the threat until it is too late. For instance, there are already anecdotal stories emerging from certain clinics in the Midwest, describing how entire families arrived with active measles symptoms, having interacted with neighbors and relatives for days without suspecting that any danger lurked. By the time the diagnosis was confirmed, local case tallies shot up. It is a sobering reminder of just how quickly a single oversight can ripple outward from one household to an entire region. In the midst of these sobering accounts and predictions, we can find hope. Medical science has not failed us. The vaccine for measles remains highly effective, and many hospitals are well trained in treating complications. The real challenge lies in bridging the gap between knowledge and action, ensuring that communities remain vigilant without giving in to panic. Experts like Dr. Shepard famously say, "Medicine thrives on knowledge and prevention. The more we know, the more we can stop tragedy in its tracks." It is a rousing call for each of us to do our part. If you have found a nugget of truth or a fresh perspective while hearing this account, consider leaving a supportive comment or hitting that subscribe button so you can stay updated on crucial news tidbits. These small actions, repeated by many individuals, can help build a wave of social awareness strong enough to push the measles virus back into submission. Make no mistake, it takes a village, but the village is each and every one of us. Finally, we arrive at the crossroads of reflection. The day, which started as a collage of dire headlines and sensational stories, gradually revealed a deeper pattern. We live in a world brimming with momentous challenges. Whether it is cross-continental political strife, domestic turmoil in the form of manhunts and partisan clashes, or the ancient threat of an extremely contagious disease surging back into the social mainstream, the overarching theme is clear. We must decide how we allocate our energy and resources. Do we remain so entangled by the theatrical aspects of politics and conflict that we neglect the health and safety of our own households? Or can we walk and chew gum at the same time, addressing immediate security threats while remaining alert to the creeping tide of measles cases that now threaten our communities? Perhaps the scariest truth of all is that measles, a virus that many believe to be little more than a memory from grandparents' stories, is once again forging its path through modern society. That is a wake-up call if ever there was one. It thrusts upon us a responsibility we cannot escape, to pay attention, to share facts, to reason with those who may misunderstand or doubt the severity of the situation. In the swirl of controversies, parades, foreign missile strikes, summits, and protests, we must not forget that our collective well-being can depend on something as simple as encouraging a neighbor to get vaccinated or reminding a friend to verify their child's immunization schedule. The momentum of this outbreak could shift at any moment, either ballooning into a full-scale crisis or being contained and quickly eradicated if enough of us respond in time. Regardless of how the next days, months, or even years unfold, one thing is certain: the world will continue to spin with layers of drama and complexity. Governments may rise and fall, new alliances may form or break, and parades might stoke both spectacle and outrage. But amid all the background noise, the real question remains whether we will rise to the occasion, ready to confront a medical threat that is as old as it is cunning. We can only hope that high-profile experts like Dr. Jessica Shepard, courageous public health officials, and everyday citizens alike join forces to ensure no more children or adults suffer needlessly. Even if the news cycle moves on, let us not allow complacency to set in once again. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and remember, sometimes the biggest battles are the quiet ones, fought in clinic waiting rooms and through compassionate conversations in living rooms. That is the story we have for you on this intense day of June 15th, 2025. A day overshadowed by towering conflicts, yet marked by one persistent threat that will not vanish simply because big politics is hogging the spotlight. When the dust settles and historians look back, they may decide that the greatest challenge was not defeating an old virus itself, but convincing enough of us to care.